We start the official meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. I saw Charles Polster here. Charles Polster here? Charles Polster,
He's in the
could you
back.
lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Yeah, come forward.
I pledge
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I declare this meeting of April the 24th duly opened, and we will start right with the regular agenda. Item number B, approval of regular session minutes. Board, you've had the minutes for your review and discussion. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes from 4/22/2019?
So moved.
I'll second the motion.
Been moved and seconded. Any conversation or discussion? Roll call, Judy.
Mr. Humphrey.
Aye.
Mrs. Corcoran.
Yes.
Mr. Painter.
Yes. Item number C, we have proclamations and designations today. The first one is for Ulysses S. Grant Commemoration Day, and I understand Greg Roberts from New Richmond is here to receive that proclamation. Proclamation, Ulysses S. Grant Commemoration Day. Whereas April 27th, 1822 was a significant day in Clermont County in American history, when Ulysses S. Grant, the future 18th President of the United States, was born in Point Pleasant, Ohio. Ulysses S. Grant not only was to become the President, but was the victorious Union general during the Civil War and freed the slaves forever. Whereas Point Pleasant and Clermont County will be celebrating the 197th anniversary of the birth of Ulysses S. Grant, and his subsequent leadership in war and peace. Whereas on Saturday, April 27th, the United States Grant Volunteers, the Historic New Richmond Incorporated, and others are celebrating this historic event by promoting the significant contribution of Clermont County's most famous son. And whereas the Board of Clermont County Commissioners recognizes the significance of the historical contributions to freedom and equality that was made by Ulysses S. Grant. Now therefore let it be resolved that we, the Board of Clermont County Commissioners, do hereby proclaim Saturday, April 27, 2019 as Ulysses S. Grant Commemoration Day. It's signed the Board of Clermont County Commissioners, David L. Painter, President, Edwin H. Humphrey, Vice President, and Claire B. Corcoran, Member. Greg, on behalf of the Board of Clermont County Commissioners, please accept this proclamation on behalf of Commemoration Day for Ulysses S. Grant.
Thank you.
If you could say a few words.
I know you have a long agenda, so I'll just be very brief. One, on behalf of Historic New Richmond and the Ulysses S. Grant birthplace, I'd like to thank the commissioners for this proclamation, and just close with encouraging everyone here attending to learn as much as you can about this great man. The more you learn about him, the more you'll know about what he meant and why the pledge we just said has great meaning, because that's what he lived for, to make this country indivisible with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Three, two, one. One more for safety. 3, 2, 1. All right, we're good.
Yep, thank you, thank you. You bet. Good to see you. You might want to just stay right up here because And we have another proclamation today. A proclamation, Foster Care Recognition and Recruitment Month in Clermont County. Whereas Clermont County Department of Job and Family Services is fortunate to have about 100 dedicated foster families that help provide care to over 100 children who find themselves in agency custody due to abuse and neglect issues. And whereas statewide, there are over 14,000 children in foster care and a shortage of foster homes. Whereas foster families open their homes and hearts to help children in need, play a vital role in helping children and families heal, reconnect, and launch children into successful adulthood. And whereas dedicated foster families frequently adopt foster children, resulting in a greater need for more foster families, and whereas there are numerous individuals, public and private organizations who work diligently to ensure that children have a temporary or permanent safe and loving home, and work to increase public awareness of the importance of foster care. Now, therefore, let it be proclaimed that we, the Board of Clermont County Commissioners, do hereby proclaim the month of May 19th as Foster Care Recognition Month. And I understand we have a representative here that will accept this proclamation. In Clermont County, we commend this observance to our citizens as an opportunity to celebrate foster and adopted families and spread awareness on behalf of the foster children in Clermont County who are waiting for a loving home. We further encourage the community, business groups, schools, faith-based organizations, and families to change a life by sharing their hearts, opening their homes, and offering help to children in foster care. Foster parents and the child welfare professional staff working with them during this month and throughout the year. And it's signed by the Board of Clermont County Commissioners. And on behalf of the commissioners, please accept this proclamation.
Thank you.
Thank you. And if you'd say a few words.
Absolutely. Well, good morning. My name is Tim Dick. I'm with Clermont County Children's Protective Services, and this May is the foster parent recognition month in the state of Ohio, and obviously in Clermont County. Commissioner Painter spoke about the statewide need for foster parents, and while all our children currently have homes, the need still is great here in Clermont County. Because when we don't have foster homes in Clermont County, for the children of Clermont County, we have to place them outside of our community. And that's additional hardships on the children, additional hardships on the families who are trying to do what they need to do to reunify with these children. So the need is still great in Clermont County, even though we have a home for all of our children currently. Way too many, about 40% of them are placed outside of Clermont County because of the lack of homes available here. So if you're interested in becoming a foster parent, or you know someone who would make a great foster parent, we'd encourage you to visit our website, clermontforkids.org, or our recruiter's number is 732-7765. We also have open houses where our recruiter will bring some foster parents in so they can talk about the real life experience of what it's like to be a foster parent. And the next one is June 17th at 7 p.m. and that's at the Glenesti Church of Christ, who hosts that for us. So thank you for recognizing foster parents.
Thank you. And if you would, help us with the picture. Okay. We'll do one with this end of the other. We have one more, Kelly, we have one more certificate for them. Let her. We have one more certificate for them.
Oh, we do?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're going to do this first.
Go ahead and get them all. Get in there, splash. Go that way.
Yeah, I know.
Squeeze together.
Yeah, you probably, I was going to say, if they stand in the back, they'll be able to move in the front.
Where are we going? We're going to get them all.
You're just going to stand tall.
Once,
On the
right?
table. I can only say that.
Yeah, that's right, Judy.
How's that? Squeeze in, guys. Yeah, put that down. Yeah. Like kind of shoulder to shoulder.
Yeah. Good.
Next year, you all have to come and practice before we do this, you know?
We'll have a rehearsal.
Rehearsal.
Oh no, I think it's awesome. Does he got you?
I think I got everyone. And we'll go in 3, 2, 1. And one more. 3, 2, 1. All right, we're good.
All right.
All right.
One more.
Well, we have a certificate.
Now I'm going to hold on to this.
Yep.
Thanks for all the foster parents coming today.
Thank
You
you.
guys stay right here with us.
I bet you do.
We have a special certificate of recognition today from Mark and Denise Stripple, who's standing here with me to my right. We commend you for 30 years of service as the primary source of love and compassion for the children most in need. Thank you for opening your home and heart to provide a safe and secure place for them. Nothing can compare to your many years of fostering and training others on this selfless service. The Board of Clermont County Commissioners, this 24th day of April, signed by David L. Painter, President, Edwin H. Humphrey, Vice President, and Claire Corcoran, Member. Thank you so much, Mark and Denise, for your dedication to Clermont County. And I know and we'll take a picture of this with them. Okay? Yep. He does, it's okay.
I know he likes that curtain back
They
there.
do that. They do that.
Yeah, they do it all night long.
And 3, 2, 1. And 3, 2, 1. We're good. Thanks.
All right. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Listen, this is an event, Dave.
This
Eventful
this
day.
is.
Proclamation Day.
It sure is.
We have another proclamation here for the National Day of Prayer in Clermont County. And Pastor Sweet, I understand you'll be accepting this proclamation. Thank you for being here today. For those of you who don't know, this is Pastor Sweet, and he is with the First Baptist Church of New Richmond, Ohio, who is just 1 week or 2 weeks ago? 2 weeks ago?
Just a few weeks ago, yep.
Just celebrated their 200th anniversary of being a church here in Clermont County. 1819. On behalf of the Clermont County Board of Commissioners, a day of prayer in Clermont County, whereas days of prayer have been called for since 1775, when the Continental Congress designated a time for prayer in forming a new nation. And whereas in 1863, President Abraham Lincoln signed a proclamation asking Americans to set aside April 30th as the day to confess national sins and to pray for clemency and forgiveness. Whereas such a day has been observed nationally since 1952, when the Congress and President Harry S. Truman provided for a National Day of Prayer on which the people of the United States may turn to God in prayer, meditation, and whereas Congress has called upon our citizens to reaffirm the role of prayer in our society, whereas Clermont County is home to people who pray, seek inspiration, strength, and guidance from God, and whereas the 68th Annual National Day of Prayer will be observed on Thursday, May 2nd, 2019, with the theme of Love One Another. And that will also be celebrated on the courthouse steps, May 2nd here in Clermont County, and you are welcome to attend. Now therefore let it be proclaimed that we, the Board of Clermont County Commissioners, do hereby designate the day of May 2nd, 2019 as a day of prayer throughout Clermont County, and ask that all citizens celebrate their faith through prayer and reflect on the many blessings, express gratitude, and recognize the need for prayer in our lives. And it's signed by the Board of Clermont County Commissioners. Pastor Sweet, on behalf of the Board of Clermont County Commissioners, please accept this proclamation as a National Day of Prayer. Thank you. A couple words you'd like to say?
Certainly.
Just wish to say thank you to the commissioners for recognizing the foundational importance of prayer in our society. I think of a couple verses of scripture. If the foundations be destroyed, what can the righteous do? And then, blessed is the nation, or blessed is the people whose God is the Lord. And I think we all recognize the significance of the faith community throughout the history of our nation. So thank you for recognizing that. Thank you for honoring it today. And we do encourage all of our people on that special day, but every day, to be people of prayer. God bless you all. Thank you.
It's better off today, isn't it?
Three, two, one. 3, 2, 1. Thank you.
Now she can go.
I can go.
We will now move to item D. Item D is presentations. I understand that Jeff Wright, Miami Township, is here today to do a presentation on the undivided local government fund. Jeff, are you in attendance? Podium is yours.
Yes, I'd love to have the floor for both items.
I think he's talking about Miami Township.
He is.
I'll take 3 minutes later for the other topic.
Okay, very good.
You're fine.
First of all, it's overwhelming and humbling that so many other townships, villages, and cities are here today to hear 5 minutes about Miami Township. I appreciate you investing your time. Try to make it worthwhile. Those are the map that people have seen this morning. That's just a reminder of some of the landmarks and borders of the township. And first of all, I appreciate all 3 commissioners giving us the time this morning to share a little bit of our recent story with the whole county.
And just to make sure, just a minute, not to interrupt you, we have opened this board to the townships, villages, and cities for you to come over and make a presentation about the things that are happening in your community, in your township, or your city or village. The commissioners decided on that forum because we thought it would open up an opportunity for you and would also give you a good forum to communicate to the citizens. So thanks, Jeff, for coming.
Thank you for that. Appreciate the opportunity. So again, just some basic figures about the township in case some of you aren't aware of some of the statistics. We are a home rule township. That is significant. Not all townships in Ohio choose to be that way or meet the qualifications that the ORC sets out. In short, though, that means we offer, other than utilities, really all of the services that many villages and cities in the county provide. We do have the highest amount of road miles in Clermont County, so that's a responsibility that we've ramped up recently and appreciate some recent support from our residents on. This is really an accountability chart. Some folks called it organization chart. We still keep it that way technically, but accountability means it's never forgotten by us that the electorate is at the top of the chart. There at the bottom row I mentioned earlier, as we are a home rule township, we do provide service, fire EMS, police, which not all townships do, a very robust recreation department, as well as we do have our own planning and zoning personnel, and we provide those services locally for the residents. This is a slide that I've shown the last 3 years and I updated annually. I always like to make it similar to what a stockholder who owns stock in a private company might view. We update it annually so that our shareholders, who are our residents and property owners, can see how their share in their community is doing, both in growth year to year and then also in comparison to the other communities. You do note that we are doing very well. In fact, the strongest of all local communities in Clermont County. But the takeaway, and it's critically important this morning that we all take away from this, what this just shows and proves is that there is a lot of disposable income from a majority of our households. And what also should be taken away is not only are the Miami Township residents with these home values and median household incomes, are they spending it within Miami Township? Because of course they don't. With 43,500 residents at this medium household income level, the good news for all of Clermont County is our residents are spending their dollars at all of our neighboring communities, Goshen, downtown Loveland, downtown Milford, certainly quite a bit of it in the Eastgate area of Union Township, but also all along the State Route 125 corridor of Clermont County. So we're glad for our residents and property owners that they're able to see how their share and their stocks are doing. But it also should be mindful then that little corner of the county does provide a lot of income tax and sales tax that's collected by the state and redistributed in various forms back to the county. So hopefully that is remembered. This is a slide that we're very proud of because this is the debt retirement. If you consider that we always have an annual budget of about $24 to $25 million a year, depending on capital improvement projects, you'll note we have really not taken on a debt issuance since 2016, so it's been almost 3 years. It'll be 3 years later this year. And the incredibly positive news is that you want a retirement schedule to go trend downward as you go to the out years, of course. And you'll see that really within about 5-year time period, the existing debt's going to be cut in half. And other than some very short-term debt of maybe 4 or 5 years in length for very expensive fire engines, or Chief Kelly, who's here today, hopes an aerial truck, we don't have any plans for having to take on any new large bond issues. So we're very proud of the fact that the debt ratio for the township is incredibly low, and that helps us then earn a very high rating when we do have to go to market. This is a slide that's a lot of info in one picture, but it's a snapshot of the last several years. Obviously, all local economies have improved since the Great Recession ended. Probably the important takeaways would be to look at the new single-family housing starts. We are in a very consistent trend. We had 85 new single-family homes 2 years ago, 87 1 year ago, and today we had around 33 to 35 issued this year. And so that's going to be a consistent. I predict that for a 5-year period, we're going to be in the mid-80s. But I do want to give historical perspective. If that sounds like an awful lot of homes, it truly is not. I do list there near the bottom that the year in which Miami Township issued the most new housing starts was 2003, and that year we had 292 homes. So put in perspective that it's actually less than 1/3 of the number of homes that were done for several years pre-recession. So that's a good perspective to keep in mind. The 85 to 90 new housing starts here based on the number of residents per single family home we average. This is about a 0.5% increase in your population. That's not a very large percentage of increase, but it's gradual and sustainable. And positive news is we've invested in all of our services so that we're going to be able to continue for the next many years to provide the same level of services to the approximately 300 or so new residents that we will anticipate gaining a year. This is a snapshot of something that the Business Courier puts out annually. They now show the 150 largest privately owned businesses. This changes, any given year when we see, we do a lot of work and we share with Ready Cincinnati and the folks in your own Community Economic Development Department. We do a lot of business retention, expansion, and attraction. And right now we do have 6 of the 150 largest privately owned companies in the 8-county Southwest Ohio, Northern Kentucky region. Go through real quickly. In the last 12 months, we've enjoyed having the commissioners present at many of the new business starts or new construction that we celebrated in the community. You've probably heard me say previously this year, Midwest Best Barbecue, while it was about a $600,000 building, it's a really good example of a truly mom and pop business. Tim and Nicole Warsham are township residents. Their kids attend Milford schools. Tim, the husband, is a graduate of Milford High School. His wife's from Atlanta, but she enjoys raising her family here in Clermont County. That was a partnership between my staff, Andy and Adele and their staff, and HCDC and a local private bank in getting a small business loan to help that family, which they qualified for. They just needed a little bit of capital, and we were able to track them from a neighboring community in Hamilton County. They now have 3 times the investment, about 5 times the staff that they employ. But it took a combination of efforts on multiple levels for us to work and get them in that building, and they are very successful. Their only mistake to date is that the parking lot is too small. So that's something that's fixable. On State Route 28 near our eastern border, we did celebrate the Tractor Supply Company. That was the largest commercial investment in new construction last year. Big B Coffee is another local mom and pop story. It's worth mentioning that the interchange of State Route 28 and I-275 is seeing a resurgence. We've had a lot of private sector capital invested. Tokugawa opened up the week of Christmas. We are going to see, starting this summer, the ground broken for the Wings and Rings. They're a locally, for now, a headquartered in Miami Township business, and they're going to be building their new model of restaurant right there at that interchange. They closed on the property in November, and they're just going through their design process. And then Mike's Car Wash, everybody's noticed, has risen out of the ground. They are still on pace to open the first or second week of August. So that's going to be, that's a type of business that we do have one nice car wash in the community now, but that's something that we have a lot of market leakage on. It's a recession-proof business, and unfortunately a lot of residents are not able to have that need met. Just some of the slides of some of the new construction taking place. The largest private investment we're going to see this year is, of course, on State Route 28 near the middle of the township. I talked about market leakage earlier. We all should be aware that our healthcare needs is unfortunately a type of business that we have market leakage for every community within Clermont County. Unfortunately, right now, a lot of our residents do go for treatment in a few other communities within Hamilton County. So we're proud of this investment by the Christ Hospital folks. This is going to be a full-service clinic. There will be some outpatient items done, and it's going to employ close to 30 persons when it is finished. And they expect to be open this coming fall before the holiday season starts. So that's a $3.5 million investment, and we hope that a lot of Clermont County residents will be able to get their needs met right there and not have to leave the county. The most recent commercial development we have is that we have been working with DER Development. That is Dale Rowe and his sons. They're a locally based developer. They've been in Clermont County literally Dale's entire life. They have closed on 2 parcels from Henkel Schuler, immediately across the street on Wolf Pen Road from the entrance to Likens Energy Corporation. They are getting ready to break ground soon. They've already worked with us on plan approval, and we're working with them on some other assistance they need. But you will see ground broken in 2019. When it's all said and done, it's very likely that their entire acreage could contain 3 commercial, light industrial, and office buildings when it is fully developed within just a few years. Moving on to a couple of the constraints and threats that we're working on. It's amazing to me with the topographies that Clermont County has, which is unique to the rest of, I think, the greater Cincinnati area. We do have some township roads that connect state highways. I asked Doug Royer every time I see him if he and Pat want to take these over, but they're very sharing gentlemen. So these are township roads that connect a couple of highways or some heavily traveled neighborhood roads. And we constantly see creeks erode at the toe or the slope of these, and they threaten the roadways. The Lewis Road slope stabilization, we were able to compete for an OPWC grant that's going to pay about 79% of the cost, but this is a $317,000 fix to this. Residents, I know, can get frustrated with the amount of time it takes sometimes to repair a project like this, but this isn't just slapping down some new asphalt. We had to have quite a fix engineered, and then you'll see that there are vertical concrete reinforced columns that are being placed at the toe of that to prevent that from getting worse in the future. And then the very busy road that a lot of county residents use is Klondike Road. Just above the intersection of Klondike with US Route 50, hopefully this week, but it's always weather dependent. We do have a contractor already awarded this bid, and that's a $239,000 fix. It's going to be almost identical design as Lewis Road. There are 3 separate sections that are going to have the same kind of vertical concrete pillars placed there. It's going to take a few months, and when they're done, we will, of course, repave the entire section of roadway. We did, again, we were lucky enough to have an OPWC grant to help with a portion of that, but the rest of it comes from the township. Some of the services that we benchmark and hold our feet to the fire, we do have a CLIA accredited police department. We are now at 41 of the 42 sworn officer slots we have. Something very new that it's so new I had to have my PowerPoint project in early to your office, but we did find out confirmation on Thursday night that we were named one of Ohio's safest communities. In fact, there's a national corporation that evaluated a lot of crime statistics and other data from all of the communities in Ohio that have 42,000 or greater population. And of all of those townships and cities in the state, we were ranked the 3rd safest community among that group. So we're extremely proud of that. I could not be more proud of my fire and EMS and my police department staff, really all of our employees. But also, it's not lost on us, a lot of the appreciation goes to our residents. We have very responsible and responsive group. They know to communicate with us. They appreciate that we've invested a large sum in our police department to do a lot of proactive items with our community. We invest on the front end to kind of train or teach a very safe community so that hopefully there's less resources needed on the back end. But so we're very proud of that, and that's a significant investment for us. But we're glad that our residents can feel the pride that they've invested in the 3rd safest community in the state. Here's some stats of what it takes to have the 3rd safest community in the state of Ohio. It's staggering that last year we had over 23,000 calls for service for just our police department. Now, some of those are, again, the proactive measures. And we also, like many places in Clermont County, when they're available, and we usually have about 6 officers on staff at once, they'll even respond to a call with the fire and EMS. But this is everything from felonies to the proactive items I mentioned earlier. We do vacation and senior citizen house checks, but then also sometimes they make a run with the fire and EMS to see if they can enhance the safety of that particular scene. And then similarly, we had a record year for our fire and EMS department. They breached 5,000 calls for service for the first time in our history. That is an amazing amount of calls. We're very glad that we invested 2 years ago in a 4th fire station. So that also comes at a great expense, but it's one that our residents continuously encourage us to invest in, is that we have properly trained staff. In fact, our women and men in our fire and EMS are all full-timers, are fully certified paramedics. Because obviously about 80% of calls for service now are paramedicine related and not the traditional fire related. So I mentioned there something we've done to be able to keep up with those increased demands for service. We did compete successfully for a federal SAFER grant. In 2019, 20, and 21, we were able to hire 9 new full-time paramedic and firefighters. The good news is that in the first 2 years, 75% of those new payroll expenses will be reimbursed to us back by the federal government. Weans down to 35% in the 3rd year, but then in 2022, we make a commitment to keep those folks on our staff, and we will have to absorb 100% of those expenses going forward. Highlight some of the collaborative efforts. We're continuously working with our neighboring jurisdictions, Loveland and Milford school districts. It's getting harder to recruit, unfortunately, young women and men that want to have careers in public service. And so something that Chief Kelly and several of us started with Milford High School is an internship program. It was a successful 8-week internship with one lady and 3 young men from Milford High School, and that gave them 3 hours a week, real legitimate training in the field. And it sounds like 2 of the 4 have already sparked an interest in having either in the military as a firefighter, or here locally, I hope eventually in Clermont County, as a full-time paramedic and firefighter. So we think that's going to pay dividends a few years down the road. Finally, there's just a number of the ways that we encourage our residents, our business owners, and other communities to get in contact with us. We try every way possible to be approachable and find additional ways to provide information back to our community. That concludes. It's hard to put my pride for Miami Township into 7 minutes, but the chairman reminded me last night at a banquet that I would be on the clock. So I appreciate the time you did give me. If there's any questions of the board members, happy to answer anything.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you.
Thank you. And so each week, for those that are in attendance, we encourage participation from a township or a village or city. You can contact Judy, the clerk of the board here, and we can set you up on the schedule so you can also hit bragging rights to your community. We'll move on the agenda now to the undivided local government fund and the alternative method of apportionment pursuant to section 574753 of the Ohio Revised Code. I understand that Clermont County Township Association, Kelly Flanagan, is here this morning to give, she's the finance director of Miami Township. Kelly, the floor is yours.
Is there,
You need a technology person.
Mm-hmm. She'll get it up here. There you go.
There we go.
President Painter, Commissioner Humphrey, Commissioner Corcoran, just thank you for giving me the time this morning to speak on behalf of the local government fund. As you mentioned, I'm here on behalf of the Clermont County Township Association. I'm also here on behalf of my community, Miami Township, which I am the finance director. I want to talk a little bit about the history of the local government fund. We have talked about this over the past year. It did originate in 1934. This is when the state first enacted a sales tax at a rate of 3%. I think we could all wish that it was 3% today. There were also some changes to the revenue sharing concept in the 70s, and it added some additional things, including 3.5% of the state income tax, sales tax, as well as the corporate franchise tax. There have been different funding streams over the years, but the premise has always remained basically the same, and this is that the state would distribute the money to the 88 counties, which would then be redistributed within the county by the County Budget Commission. The Ohio Revised Code does allow for there to be a statutory allocation, or counties can also elect to adopt an alternative formula. To my knowledge, I believe there are only 4 counties that do the statutory formula. In the past, there's been litigation and contention regarding the statutory formula. Different communities would inflate their needs and their tax budget, and I think that's why most communities and counties decide to do an allocation by an alternative formula. I believe the counties previously talked about the history of the current formula and the guaranteed amounts. This has been since at least the 70s. I think it's been some sort of allocation that we've been doing today, but it predates any records for the rationale behind where this formula was derived. I think we can all agree that no one has been able to fully explain how we have the formula that we have today. I think we could also all agree that a lot has changed since the 70s, and maybe it is time to look at doing a different type of alternative formula. Last year, we had talked about doing another 5-year resolution to adopt the same formula again, but thinking that there might be some disparity and we wanted to review our options, many communities elected to do a 1-year resolution in order to allow time to look at alternatives and hopefully propose an alternative formula. I know several communities passed the 1 year. Miami Township did, Union Township, Pierce Township, Monroe Township, Batavia Township, and City of Milford, just to name a few. When I mentioned disparity among the current formula, this slide shows a comparison of the 2010 census versus the 2019 local government fund allocation. On the left-hand side of the screen, we have the communities with the lowest population in Clermont County, Village of Shiloh. On the right, we have Union Township, the largest community within Clermont County. The bar graphs that are kind of all over the chart there, that is the 2019 local government fund allocation. Right in the middle is Village of New Richmond and Ohio Township. And I know this has been used previously as an example. On the 2010 census, Ohio Township had 28 more people than the Village of New Richmond. If you look at the 2019 local government fund allocation to these two communities, Ohio Township is receiving around 14,000 and Village of New Richmond is receiving around 76,500. This could go back to, at one time, the current formula made a lot of sense, and maybe there was a reason that these two similarly populated communities received such different amounts. But as far as the Township Association is concerned, we don't feel that this does make sense today. After the 1 year resolution was passed by the majority of those in Clermont County, being the commissioners that had a vote, City of Milford had a vote, and the majority of the remaining jurisdictions throughout the county, the Clermont County Township Association did have a committee that formed and met several times to look at different alternatives and to propose an alternative formula. We looked at different weighted options that included taking a percentage equal among all jurisdictions. We looked at including population, road miles, acreage, and there are a lot of different ways to do it. We ultimately decided to keep it simple and propose an option where Clermont County maintains their current percentage of 48.54%. 25% of the remaining portion would be distributed equally among all of the jurisdictions. And then of that remaining portion, it would be allocated based on capita of the 10-year census. We realized that some communities would be getting more than they had in the past, other communities would be getting less than they had in the past. So we thought a 3-year phase-in would be fair in order to allow for planning and budgetary purposes. To my knowledge, I am not aware of another formula that has been presented, other than I know a couple communities have passed another resolution to do another 1 year similar to what we did this year. I think that was why we did that last year, so I'm not quite sure that doing another 1 year of keeping things status quo is necessarily the answer. When we take a look at this formula and do it among all of the communities in Clermont County, this is how it pans out. This is what was supported by the Clermont County Township Association, and I believe several communities have passed resolutions proposing this formula for 2020 through 2024. The first column is what the 2019 allocation is, and then it shows everyone getting $12,636.99 for all of the jurisdictions within the county, and then the remaining 75% is based on capita. I know there's been lots of talk about how there have already been state cuts. Everyone has had to deal with that. That's not unique to any of the townships or municipalities within the county. Everyone has had cuts from estate tax, personal property tax. And this formula has also changed over the years. Everyone talks about needs. Need is relative. A larger community is going to have different needs than a smaller community. Everyone is going to have a different definition as to what is need. In conclusion, I just wanted to share this information. We feel that this proposal is simple and justifiable. We feel it's equitable and transparent, and that every resident in Clermont County should have the same worth regardless of where they live. Wouldn't you agree? If there's any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer.
Any question from the board?
Thank you.
No questions?
Thank you.
Yeah.
We will move to Michael Doss, City Manager, City of Milford, Ohio.
Had to bring the ruler. He says I'm getting older. Starting to fail me. I haven't accepted to wear glasses yet. Holding on to my youth as much as I can. But it's fading fast. Reminded every day. I want to thank the Clermont County Commission, President Painter, Commissioner Humphrey, Commissioner Corcoran for entertaining an audience today to talk about local government funds and the impact on all of our communities within Clermont County. Just a little bit to reiterate, the General Assembly did establish the local government fund formula in 1934. This was a reaction to the Great Depression. Local government funds do allow the state of Ohio to actually share state tax revenue with local governments, many of which were facing financial difficulties at that time and still face those financial difficulties today. Local government funds do aid municipalities and townships by, again, providing that financial assistance to critical public services such as roads and infrastructure, as well as safety services such as police, fire, and emergency medical services. Each county budget commission is responsible for distributing the undivided local government fund within its county on the basis of need. Most counties, as again alluded to, adopted an alternative method of apportioning local government funds as compared to the statutory formula of apportionment. Clermont County, again, as mentioned, is one of those counties that did adopt this alternative method. And I want to be clear, I think the one commonality that everybody does understand is that no one can explain this formula that's being used right now. And is the formula antiquated? Yeah, probably is antiquated. For the past 35 years, from a Milford perspective, Milford has voted yes on this formula. A no vote by the city would have meant going back to the statutory method of allocation, which would actually, quite honestly, have favored Milford and a few of the larger townships in Clermont County, but unfortunately would have hurt most of the villages and townships in Clermont County. Recently, the Clermont County Township Association proposed a change to the undivided local government fund formula that, again, has been in place for 35 years. Milford, Loveland, as well as other villages in Clermont County stand to forfeit significant portions of their local government fund revenue in relation to their respective annual budgets. Most of all the villages, the city of Milford and the city of Loveland, forfeit almost half, presently, of their current local government fund revenue, which would correlate for some villages a somewhat significant financial burden, again, in Clermont County for some of those villages. As alluded to, the Township Association formula relies heavily on population per capita. I will state this, that when you add up all the populations of the villages and the cities and the portion of Loveland, you get roughly around 30,000 population in a county that has about 206. So I understand, I think we get the population argument. We're not really here to debate that. A formula that would better express, we feel, and represent the needs of local government would be to consider other variables, but not limited to median household income, median home value, road maintenance, and millage. From a Milford perspective, and Mr. Wright alluded to this in his presentation, something that we're not necessarily happy to talk about from Milford's perspective is our median household income is almost half of our neighboring townships, Union Township and Miami Township, and our sister city of Loveland. Our median household income, not just our home values, is also half of our neighboring townships and our sister city as well. Even though we have a 1% sales tax, we're not quite getting the amount I think that some people realize that we would be receiving. Also on another note, 49% of the homes and properties in Milford are rental properties as well. Maybe something that some did not know. Again, it is understandable that more variables include equal would actually complicate this formula, probably complicate it as much as whatever formula is being used right now. So I think in the spirit of simplifying things, I think that's a benefit for everyone, to have an agreeable formula that's simple, everybody can use, and everybody understands. Again, recently, several villages, including the city of Milford and the city of Loveland, adopted legislation requesting that the current local government fund formula be continued for another year into 2020. The intent of that legislation is basically to provide time for all local government parties of interest, townships, villages, cities, and even Clermont County, to collaborate on a revised alternative local government formula that is more amicable and equitable for all. So I will allude to my slide up here, and I believe that's in the agenda packets. This is a slide that was created by the city of Milford. Again, this slide is for talking points. This is in that spirit of collaboration and coordination. We did create this working formula that encompasses a portion of what the Township Association has already passed in our per capita population, but also talks about a redistribution of some of the county's allocated portion of local government funds. So if you want to look up there, and bring my trusty ruler out, so bear with me. Set that there. So then this is just based off of what everyone has received this year in local government funds. That does change from year to year. It's not an exact science. So again, we're just working off numbers that were provided this year. And then this formula, again, just for talking points, you notice Clermont County, we have them at 50%. We have the city of Milford at, and the townships and the other villages actually receiving the other 50% of the remainder of that. That's kind of how the current formula works. As far as distribution, again, the township dealing with the other 50% of that that's dispersed between the cities and the villages and the townships. They did utilize per capita population. So one of the things, again, is talking points that we're proposing. First, we get Milford out of the picture. So we get Milford out of the 50% picture. We pull ourselves out, utilizing, again, the township model, and any monies that were under that other 50% are actually dispersed to the townships and to the villages and also the city of Loveland. But if you go and look up at the top, what we're requesting is that the formula at the county level for the county be changed a little bit. Again, we have them at 50%. So what we're proposing in this model, again, just for discussionary points, would be for Clermont County, out of the total allocation of 2.7 and change that was allocated this year, we're asking Clermont County in this model to go from 50% down to 46 and a quarter. 46 and a quarter, and you can see what that would leave the county with, again, based off of disbursements for the 2019 year. The city of Milford would take 3.75%, which would bring us to $102,000. Now, if you go and slide over just to the pink part of that, just looking at the variance for the Milford model and the variance for the township model, Milford loses. And actually, if you look all the way down, Milford loses. Actually, Milford loses over everyone in this model. So, you know, that redistribution of local government funds is quite apparent in this model. The only difference, again, is under the township model, the city of Milford would lose $116,000 and change, and under this model would lose 61, just shy of 62,000. Again, kind of a little outside the box thinking, but that would work for us. And I can only speak for Milford in a sense that Milford is very unique in our geographical location. We are sandwiched between two large townships. Mr. Wright alluded to the presence of Miami Township in his presentation. So even though we have a population of 6,700, at any given point during the time of day or on the weekend, that doubles and sometimes triples. When you have a State Route 126, 131, 28, US 50, and of course you have the 275 corridor beltway, you do get a lot of population that exceeds our census population at any given point during the day or on the weekend. If you scroll down a little bit, you can take a look at the model. Again, pulling Milford out. One of the changes between this, again, for talking points versus the Township Association models, instead of a 25 base and a 75% based off per capita, we went to a 50 base and a 50 per capita. Again, keeping in the spirit and understanding that population should be a portion considered within this formula. And you can look at the difference. I don't actually have the township formula in front of me. You're only showing the 50% there, but you can actually see the 50%. So we'll look at our sister city in Loveland under the township model. They stood to lose or stand to lose about 30,000 if this model was in place in 2019. Under the 50-50 split, you'll see Loveland loses about 20,000. Again, if going down and understanding a significant amount of the population does lie within the townships in Clermont County. You can go all the way down through the townships. Let me see if this will scroll. And you can see all the townships still gain on both models. As a matter of fact, there are some townships that actually gain under this talking point model. Looking at one particular, Stone Lake Township. Stone Lake Township, under the township model, township association model, gets about 12,000. Under this alternative model, discussionary model, they get about 17 and change. So you can see, let's see, Ohio Township. There was discussion about Ohio Township. You can see under the township model, 12,000. You can see under this alternative, 21,000. And again, you can go through your respective townships, your respective entities, and look at those changes. And I believe that's also in the packet that is provided. If not, I'm sure that can be provided to you. The significant size townships, Miami Union Township, Pierce Township, Batavia Township, under this alternative model that we have up here, still gain. They don't gain as much as they would under the township model, but they still have significant gains as well. So we do want to recognize that. Our friends at the villages, again, as I mentioned, actually still lose. But under this model, there are actually several of them that do gain. Your gains would be anything that's not highlighted in pink under the variance Milford model tab. Moscow, Neville, Newtonsville, Williamsburg actually gain a little bit under this model. For our friends with the other villages, the burden of reduction in local government funds is still there. Milford shares your pain, because again, as alluded to in this formula, Milford loses as well. But you can see those losses by Amelia, Batavia. I alluded to the city of Loveland up top, New Richmond. Again, when you're only working with so much of the pie, and it seems like every year the state is reducing local government funds in a county that fortunately, commissioners, is growing, and that is a good thing. You do have some growing pains that go along with it, and certainly I think everyone understands that. So what we're asking, again, on behalf of Mayor Albrecht and the city of Milford, our direction through an ordinance, as alluded to earlier, would be to have this formula continue into 2020. But we would like everyone to come back to the table. Maybe this is a model that's workable. Again, I think it would be a great opportunity in Clermont County to have a formula that everybody can agree on, and that everyone can say that they had a seat at the table and had participation in this. And maybe we still have time, so maybe we don't have to go into 2020 with another formula or another model, or a model that no one can quite frankly explain. That's all I have. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I appreciate that.
Thank you. Board, any questions? Any questions from the audience?
Where can we get a copy of his presentation?
It's.
Do we have that?
I'll get it for you. There were copies back there, but.
Yeah, there were copies at the back there. All right.
It's just a one-pager.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
This is all really well laid out and dollars are nice, but can you tell me for Milford what percent of your budget local government funds represent?
I don't have that percentage. I don't want to give you a number and that not be accurate. We have roughly a $13 million budget We do contract, which is a little unusual. In some places, we actually contract our fire department. So in a $13 million budget, about $2 million of that goes to our fire and EMS protection. We also have water and wastewater sewer utilities in our enterprise, and they take up a significant amount of that as well.
For perspective, at least in my township, local government fund is 21% of my general fund.
What township? I'm sorry.
Monroe.
With that, we will move to the next portion of the agenda, public participation. During this time, the board does not answer questions nor engage in debate. The commissioners are not expected to comment on matters brought to the board during this time. Each speaker will be can only speak once and shall be recognized by the board president before speaking. In accordance with Robert's Rules of Procedure, your comments are limited to 5 minutes. Do we have anyone from the public that would like to participate? Jeff Wright? You're recognized by the board. Podium's yours. Please state your name and your address for the record. Not for the record, just for the session.
Jeff Wright, 6101 Meyer Drive, Miami Township, Ohio, 45150. Just wanted to mention that the Robin Hood principle has always been great cinema ever since Errol Flynn, but it's typically not the best public policy to inequitably redistribute taxes that way. And also, it should be reminded that this is not a municipalities versus townships issue, meaning the local government fund redistribution. It's not a large community versus smaller community issue. Both of those are far from the truth. What we should keep in mind is that the local government fund is generated by taxes that have been collected from all of the residents. So what we should focus on is how do we benefit the county residents from where the most taxes are collected. And that's why I reference Robin Hood. The larger community should not be viewed as needing these funds any less than a smaller community. Fact of the matter is that that's typically from, again, where the sources are collected. And if there already is a mechanism in place that does such an action of where you see such, just like Ms. Flanagan's bar chart, where you see the inequitable redistribution of taxes, and that's the Community Development Block Grant Fund. I believe that Clermont County has, it's at least $900,000 a year, or approximately $900,000 a year. I believe I'm very close to that. And that's redistributed to all forms of jurisdictions in the county. But some townships have none or very little qualifying low to moderate income census tracts or census block groups. While there are some municipalities that receive those funds year after year, use it on things such as band shelters and other nice wants. But again, that is redistributed from all of the taxpayers in Ohio. It comes through, depending on the size of the county, either the state or federal government, and then it's redistributed back to those low to moderate income communities. And it's a very worthwhile program. It doesn't seem to be going away soon, but I want to remind everybody that that exists, and not all of the communities can take advantage of that in equal ways. Another thing Ms. Flanagan, I think, wanted to mention was villages and cities are permitted, of course, by the Ohio Revised Code to enact income taxes. And in fact, most, if not all of them in Clermont County do so. An example would be, I agree with Mr. Doss that their daytime population tends to be greater than their nighttime population, and that's because Milford, like other municipalities with 1% or more income tax, they are able to tax township residents who might spend 8.5 or less hours a day in those communities. That is a mechanism that is not afforded to townships, so that's not even on the table for us to think about. In fact, I was happy for both Union Township and Milford. I read a week or two ago in the paper, they just enacted together their 6th JED. So in fact, cities are able to collect and retain a portion of income taxes that are actually collected from employees who work in specific areas of townships. So that's a nice mechanism that they're afforded. And I also want to mention in closing that I think what Ms. Flanagan showed you, and that was not a Miami Township proposal, that, as she mentioned a couple times, that was approved by the entire Clermont County Township Association, which represents a majority of the communities in Clermont County. And I feel very strongly, as all the other township representatives here today feel that that already is significant siding with being more than fair. That shows that there's a lot of true diligent thought put into that. The fact that 25% under that proposal would still be distributed evenly is already meeting somebody. The fact that it would have a 3-year phase-in so that no community is impacted overnight, that again shows that there's a great thought in trying to be more equitable and certainly be very, very fair in that association's approach. I guess it did have another closing. We heard some hyperbole that the Township Association's proposal was maybe a surprise or people weren't brought to the table. It didn't catch anybody off guard. Ms. Flanagan mentioned that many communities last summer, in fact, rather than their communities adopted legislation agreeing to have a 1-year renewal in 2019 using the former formula. In fact, the city of Milford, rather than their traditional 5-year renewal, agreed to adopt a 1-year. That should have been a strong signal to all communities in Clermont County that change was coming. Why so many of us, the majority of the communities, went from a 5-year to a 1-year distribution model was so that this process would take place. So I don't think it caught anybody off guard. That was approximately 9 months ago. Mr. Doss put some effort into that, and I appreciate him showing it. But I saw that about 20 minutes ago when it was first shown on the wall. So I think plenty of time has taken place. It's our responsibility as elected or appointed officials to not kick cans down the road. I think we've had 9 months now to have a very professional discussion about this, and I think those are some points that probably most of the people here today think of, because it's not about a jurisdiction versus this jurisdiction. It is the residents benefiting from the tax money that was collected from them. So appreciate your time.
Thank you, Jeff. Any other public participation? Mr. Cooper?
Yes. Thank you. My name's Dennis Cooper. I'm trustee in Washington Township. And
Dennis, your address, please.
358 Neville Penn Schoolhouse Road, Felicity, Ohio.
Thank you.
One thing I want to say, this has been a real good debate because I can go back into the 80s. This same thing was debated. The very same thing. It was called something different back in those days, but the very same thing that we're debating this morning was debated. And it's never been resolved. What I liked is we got some formulas here, we got some numbers to look at, but here's the real issue that we all need to hone in on. Whether you're a village, city, or township, you need to get a letter to Mr. Becker, Mr. Green, and Mr. Eaker and tell them to restore the local government money from 1.66% to 3.53%, where it was at 6-7 years ago. That gives us all more money. And for some reason, we're backing off that. But here's the real thing that we can do. Right now, they're debating their budget for the next 2 years. House Bill 166 is the state operating budget. Now is the time to communicate to those elected officials. That's where the real change can take place. Once again, and the other thing I want to do, I want to invite you down. We mentioned our President Grant. Our good friends of the West, Monroe Township, is having, and New Richmond, is having their Grant Days. He has a birthplace in Point Pleasant, Ohio, and it takes place Saturday. Grant Days at Point Pleasant, Ohio. If you haven't been there, I encourage you to get down and see where this great president was actually born. The house is still standing there. And with that, I'm done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else from the public?
Commissioners, I am Alan Osmond. I am the mayor of the Village of Bethel, 250 Mound Street.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me. I just want to address a few things. I couldn't disagree with Mr. Wright more. To me, this is definitely a tale of two cities. You've got large versus small. What I see is you're taking money out of our smaller communities and distributing it to the larger communities. That's exactly what I see. Because unlike you, a lot of you here, I am also a resident of Tate Township. Tate Township, in your formula, the township gets about another $6,000. With the Miami plan, well, I'm sorry, with the Milford plan, they're going to get a lot more, several $1,000s more. I see $56,000 coming out of my community and being distributed to Miami and Union Townships. I question whether you really do need it or not. And I question whether or not it is a need-based plan you have here. And I also wonder, how do you come up with a formula for the townships and don't consider mills? I have a chart here in front of me. I'll use the Village of Bethel. 1 mill is $31,000 we get. In Miami Township, 1 mill generates almost $1.2 million. We can't compete. You brought up the fact that we do have an income tax. We have a 0.5% in the Village of Bethel. 3 times now we've had to pass that because people run initiatives and we have to put it back on. It's a fight every year for it. And now we have to fight the state because they're trying to get their hands on it too. They're moving more toward local or centralized collection, and I think once they get done, I think they're going to find a way to take money from us even more. So in my opinion, we need to come back to the table. Mr. Wright said it wasn't a surprise. It wasn't a surprise. We knew that this was going to take place, but we thought for some reason the villages might be invited to participate in these talks. I agree, and I've said this at the Board of Health meeting. I don't understand, can't even begin to understand why Bethel received so much money over the years. It's ridiculous. I was told that part of the team that put it together was Mr. Elliott was involved in it, and maybe that's why we got the lion's share of it over the years. And I agree we must get less, but $56,000, that's a police officer for our village. That's a huge loss for us. And we're going to have to figure out a way to get more money to have another police officer. That's it. Thanks.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
I'm Rob Weisgerber, Vice Mayor of Loveland. I live at 240 East Loveland Avenue in the city. It's also in the Clermont County portion of Loveland. Hold on one second. So what I wanted to do is take a minute to kind of say, well, Loveland sits in 3 counties, right? And yes, Loveland, a large portion of Loveland sits in Hamilton County, but we also have a good portion in Clermont and Warren counties. And so when we think about services, we have to provide services across all of those boundaries when we look at the city. I have a lot of respect for Mr. Wright. Unfortunately, Jeff, I'm going to have to vehemently disagree with some of your statements. The us versus them. You can break it down and say, well, it's us versus them on dollars. That's really not the case. We all recognize the formula isn't right? And I'm not here telling you it has to stay the same. The surprise portion of this is not being invited to the table to talk about and put additional tension in the system to talk about how do you come up with a formula that looks forward and makes good sense. So there are ways we can make proposals, and now's not the time to make that solution. I will say, however, that when we look at the city of Loveland, and this is again with Mr. Wright's comment, there are multiple funding resources, but there's also multiple required services. And you can't just say, well, the cities have an income tax. Well, that's true. But when the state cut our funds, we had no recourse, and the residents said, you will not raise our income tax. So we had to cut. I went up to the State House to testify about that cut and spent a lot of time working with our state reps about what that means to the city and other communities around Ohio in its services, right? It really comes down to services, including holding back on or releasing police officers, which we had to do. We had to cut in a lot of places, as everyone has. So the issues here, from my perspective, and from the City of Loveland, is let's have the time to make sure that we can look at the formula with some fresh eyes, with some tension in the conversation that brings everyone to the table. My suggestion isn't to pass something now. My suggestion is to form an ad hoc committee to actually bring together those varied opinions and bring a solution back that makes good sense, that is much more agreed to. You know, you could throw radical ideas out, right? You could say, well, let's split it 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. And the county, townships, cities, and villages. Is that right? No, we know that's not right. So where do you start? What do you do to make this the right thing? When you think about services, when you think about how each of our communities have to provide those services to our residents, where do we get the help? Whether it's the state, the counties, or from our own folks or other opportunities. So my ask is to not rush this forward. Yes, we've had a year, but when you're not invited, you can't have the tension in the conversation. Put an ad hoc committee together, add some tension in the conversation, and bring back something that's more workable for everybody. Because we know what we have now doesn't work, and what's being proposed does not work. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else? Mayor Hart?
My name is Mayor Todd Hart in May Village. You know, they've talked about this formula for years.
Excuse me, Mayor Hart.
Sure.
Your address?
28 Maple.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And I know we need to come to some kind of conclusion. I represent the Mayor's Association of Clermont County. And what we would like is to be asked to come to the table, to be asked to sit down and let's work this out. That's mainly what we want to talk about. They talked about the income tax. We implemented an earnings tax in Amelia, and we have a group of people now that want to dissolve the town. You have a great, vibrant town growing. They just brought a premier healthcare center in. It's going to employ 200 people, 150 to 200. And they, again, you know, so you can't guarantee that income tax is going to stay there. But I think most of all, I think invite the Mayor's Association, cities, to come to the table and sit down and look at a formula. So that's what I'd like to ask. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes.
I'm Chris Hicks from 444 Woodward Court, and shockingly, I was not planning on saying anything today, but listening to the discussion, I wanted to say something. I live in Union Township. I fully support the formula change. And I've heard it discussed personally. I'm not even in government and just going to meetings. I've heard it talked about personally for more than a year. So people coming up here and say they didn't know about it or it was a surprise, I find to be extremely disingenuous, or they really have their head in the sand and they're not plugged in their community. I think the other thing I want to say, and then I want to get to my key point, is I think in our county there are some small villages that need to face economic reality. They are not financially sustainable. They're trying to use things like speed cameras and other mechanisms to create economic formulas to keep villages in place that shouldn't exist anymore, and they need to fess up. And constantly trying to deal with this is not going to be a way to preserve a village that long-term economically cannot survive as a village. Now, the last point and the key point I want to make is I think there's an elephant in the room that people don't notice in the townships, and I think everybody should notice it and pay attention. It's that top line on this chart, Clermont County 50%. Clermont County 50%. I see it going to 46.25% in this formula. I think it is ludicrous that the county takes such a high percentage of this formula while the commissioners write editorials in the paper about what a travesty it is that the local fund's been cut. The county is economically strong now. Its revenues have been going up from year to year. It should kick in and do its part to substantially reduce its take so that maybe a transitional period could involve protecting the cities for a while and the municipalities by the county taking a lot less, but then ultimately the municipalities and villages having to face the economic reality. Probably this fund, I don't know what Mike DeWine's going to do, but I don't think something's going to radically change really. That's maybe wishful thinking. But I just think it's absurd that nobody brings up, and I had a discussion with somebody while I was sitting there, that people don't even notice that county cut. And the lack of discussion, it's like the whole townships and villages are all getting rolled into discussion about $1.3 million, while the county is keeping 50% of the entire fund for itself, when they have all this kind of money to throw into FC deals, to buy land for real estate speculation out at South Afton, et cetera. It's time for the county to change its outlook and actually do something to help the townships and the villages who are, as the commissioners write in their own editorials, under great pressure because of cuts in the local fund. Thank you very much for the chance to speak.
Thank you. Anyone else? Go ahead.
My name is Marie Drew. I'm fiscal officer for Monroe Township. I live at 2014 Clermontville Laurel Road, New Richmond, Ohio, 45157. And I'm new to this. The first time I heard about this issue was less than a year ago when I was invited to attend a meeting at Mrs. Fraley's office to discuss local government fund. At that point, I was still a relative newbie and really had no idea what it was. But I walked in that room and there were very few people there that night. And when the discussion came up about we might have a possibility of changing this, everybody in the room wanted to shut it down. And I looked up and I said, no, impossible is not in my vocabulary. We're not going to let this go. It needs to be looked at. It needs to be addressed. We need to try to find something that's more fair. And I think the townships took that to heart. We went off and put together a committee and tried our best to do something that would be fair and equitable to everybody. And I'm very happy with where that came out. For perspective, in my township, when the estate tax went away, we lost over 14% of our general fund. At that point, local government fund became 25% of our budget. With the ensuing cuts, it is now down to 21%. It is the second largest line item in my budget. So dollars are great, but when you look on a percentage basis, I doubt that it's more than a few percent for any of the larger entities. And I'm willing to be addressed if I'm wrong on that. But this is huge for townships, and I don't think people really understand that that money is enough for me to mow my township. That's all I want. I'm not looking to build buildings and do great things with it. I'm looking to maintain what I have. I've got the crappiest firehouses, I've got the crappiest township hall, and all I want to do is give my citizens a place that they can be proud of that's maintained, at least maintain what I have. And in order to do that, we need that money. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yeah, go ahead.
I'm Ed McCoy. I live at 21 Bellwood, Amelia, 45102. Apologize if you guys are in here for a total different reason than I am, other than the fact that I think when I look around the room and I look at some of you guys, I bet you if you all opened your books, you probably could all tighten your belts a little bit, speaking from a resident's point of view. Commissioners, thanks for allowing me to address you. Mr. Painter, I came before the commissioners once before regarding the hiring of Strauss Troy to represent Linda Fraley. I feel I did my part in swaying your decision to vote against the hiring. For that, I thank you. I come before the commissioners again, this time seeking help and advice. As you know, there's much turmoil in the village of Amelia. The residents and government have been disconnected for a while. Here is a brief summary of some of the issues facing the residents of the village. Council has a long history of passing ordinances and resolutions by declaring an emergency. Almost 93% of ordinances and 97% of resolutions have been passed in this manner in the last 11 years. Just think about that for a second. 93% and 97%. An emergency ordinance is supposed to be needed to protect the public's peace, health, and safety. The reason is needed to be required. The reason it is needed is required to be stated. Simply reciting it and declaring an emergency is not sufficient. This type of governing takes the public out of the process, but yet it is commonplace in this municipality. A 1% earnings tax was passed as an emergency in February of 2018 during a special meeting where public participation is not allowed. Most of the residents had no idea this meeting even took place. They found out the second week of June via a letter from the mayor. The letter stated that a tax was being implemented July 1st, 2 weeks later. And to this day, I think there's still residents that do not know about this tax. Not everybody got the letter. Since the tax was imposed, the village has gone on a spending spree, buying everything from car washes to street sweepers. It was explained at a council meeting in June of 2018 that the tax was needed for street maintenance and repairs. To this day, the residents are still waiting for the roads in the village to get repaired. Council is currently going through resumes of candidates for the position of manager at an average salary of $102,000. We were told, yeah, I know, you're shaking your, I know, wow, right? We were told we were on a shoestring budget. That was told to us by one of the council persons. Housing developments are going up everywhere, and 400 to 500 more homes are being slated to be constructed. Residents are leaving the village in droves, and homes are being purchased by brokers and used as rental properties. The residents are packed in small lots, and the elementary school is already bursting at the seams. And I know that West Clermont is redistricting and all that, but once again, there's still going to be another 400 to 500 more homes coming, and they're going to be in the same situation again. Right now, there's classes that are having their classes on the gym stage. They're using the art room for classes. That's what we're dealing with in Amelia right now. And at the April 18th, 2019 regularly scheduled council meeting, I presented a letter to council stating my intention of circulating a petition to take to the voters to surrender the corporate powers of the village of Amelia. The residents are powerless and feel it is in the best interest to go in a different direction. Citizens are looking to becoming part of their local townships, and chances of this initiative passing look very promising. I am asking help from the county in making this transition a smooth one for the residents and for Pierce and Batavia townships. We realize this change will be historic and would appreciate guidance and education in this process. I can initially be contacted through email at edmccoy1007@gmail.com, and we operate under a free Amelia Pact. Thank you for allowing me to speak, and I look forward to a response from the county. Appreciate it.
Anyone else? Seeing none, I'll close the public participation portion of the meeting. Prior to moving to the consent agenda, I'd like to have a motion to recess this meeting for a few moments.
So moved.
Second motion.
Been moved and seconded. Roll call, Judy.
Mr. Humphrey?
Aye.
Mrs. Corcoran?
Yes.
Mr. Painter?
Yes. We stand at recess. Back into regular session, and we will move right on with the agenda. We'll move to the consent agenda, item number F. Board, a consent agenda has been prepared. I know that you have gotten it in advance in draft form on Friday. You've had an opportunity to review it. Do I have a motion to approve the motion? Well, first do you have any items that need to be removed from the consent agenda that you would like to be?
We're good.
Okay. Then I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Roll call, Judy.
Mrs. Corcoran?
Yes.
Mr. Humphrey?
Aye.
Mr. Painter?
Yes. We will move right to the consent agenda on page 2. Non-consent, I'm sorry. On the non-consent agenda on page 4, item number 5. Board of County Commissioners Resolution number 044-19, payment of bills. Recommendation that the Board of County Commissioners adopt Resolution number 044-19, resolving to approve payment to vendors in the amount of $3,254,361.75 as set forth in the BCC approval invoice report for checks dated April 24, 2019, and BCC directed prepaid invoice reports presented by the county auditor on April 22, 2019, and further authorizing the county auditor to issue warrants pursuant to Section 319.16 of the Ohio Revised Code. Do I have a motion for item number 5 as read?
So moved.
I second the motion.
Been moved and seconded. Roll call, Judy.
Mr. Humphrey?
Aye.
Mrs. Corcoran?
Yes.
Mr. Painter?
Yes. Item number 6. Morning, Andy.
Morning.
Morning.
Andy Kukta, Director of Community and Economic Development. It's my recommendation with the concurrence of Suki Sheets to execute change order number 1 of the contract for services with McKenna Associates, Inc. of Northville, Michigan for consulting services relative to the preparation of a 5-year consolidated plan, fair housing assessment, and 1-year action plan for Clermont County in accordance with the scope of services as identified in Exhibit A as it relates to the Clermont County Community Development Block Grant Program for fiscal years 2020 through 2024, previously ratified by the Board of County Commissioners on 12/19/18, which represents an extension of time of an additional 360 consecutive calendar days for a revised contract completion date of 6/21/2020, and this is contingent upon the receipt of a current certificate of liability insurance. This is our first I call it the plan, consolidated plan that we've had to do since we became a direct HUD recipient. And a little quick history lesson on that was a major rush job because we found out mid-year that we were eligible to transition from being a state subrecipient to a direct recipient from HUD, and so we barely got that in the time frame that we had. So we don't have a lot of experience going off of this first of all. Secondly, we received inaccurate information from HUD on the timing of when we should be doing this next 5-year plan. Basically, we were told a year too early. So we had the contract approved to get it done by June of this year, and as we had our first sets of discussions with the consultants, we all came to the conclusion that we were way ahead of the game. And part of the issue is that this cannot be submitted more than 45 days prior to the 2020 fiscal year start date for our program, which is July 1, 2020. So we can't submit it until 45 days before that date. Frankly, this is better because this gives us a lot more time. We were going to be kind of crunched for time in the whole process that had to be done, and it actually got me thinking that for future renewals of hiring consultants to do these plans, the next set of 5-year plans, that we probably should be starting it much further in advance than we were going to for this one. So we're going to recalibrate the schedule if this is approved today, and probably start up activities again and do some public input meetings and some online surveys around July or August, and really get going into it for the fall. But it's going to provide a lot more time for the consultants to do good work and to get public input. So it's a good thing, and there's no additional cost.
Board, you've heard the reading and explanation for item number 6, whereby Andy has requested consulting services for the preparation of a 5-year consolidated plan and a 1-year action plan for Clermont County, Ohio. Do I have a motion for approval?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further conversation or discussion? Roll call, Judy.
Mrs. Corcoran?
Yes.
Mr. Humphrey?
Aye.
Mr. Painter?
Yes. Item number 7. Thanks, Andy.
Morning.
Morning.
Ed Royer with the County Engineer's Office. Item number 7 is a recommendation of Pat Munger, the County Engineer, with concurrence of Tom Iowa, County Administrator, to approve the request to advertise for bids for Project RS-07-19 relative to the 2019 road resurfacing program located in various townships, pursuant to the specifications therefore, and to authorize the clerk of the board to place a legal notice in the newspaper of general circulation on May 2nd, with the bids to be received until 2 p.m. local time on Thursday, May 16th, 2019, in the office of the Board of County Commissioners, where they will be publicly opened and read aloud shortly thereafter. This notice is also posted on the Clermont County's website.
Board, you've heard the reading of item number 7. Do I have a motion for approval?
So moved.
Second the motion.
Been moved and seconded. Any further conversation or discussion? This is for the 2019 road surfacing program in various townships. Estimated cost, do we have one already?
$2,080,000, roughly. A little over $2 million.
$2,080,000. And what do we have as far as road miles within that?
It's close to 20 miles for resurfacing, and we're also doing another 15 to 20 miles that we're doing some repairs on.
Mm-hmm.
And again, as you know, we did the $5 license last year, and typically this program is around $1 million, so this is increased by that extra $1 million.
Okay. And does that include just asphalt, or does that include road and bridge repair, culvert repair? What's all in that?
In this right here?
Yeah.
This is just road repair.
This is
Resurf-
just,
just
we're talking about, we're just talking about grinding,
Asphalt.
asphalt removal, new asphalt,
Putting asphalt down.
just putting asphalt.
Putting asphalt down and fixing failed areas with asphalt, so.
Did I remember from last year when we talked about this that asphalt paving was about, did I remember 70,000 a mile? Is that right?
It's a roughly 75,000 a mile to put the asphalt down, and then it's another 30 to 40,000 to repair the roads before you put it down. So depending on the condition of the road, it may cost, if we've already done the repairs, it's 75,000 a mile to put it down. If we haven't done the repairs on it yet, it's about 110,000 miles. But we're trying to get to a point where we're doing the repairs this year, and then next year we'll resurface it. So we're kind of, but every year we'll still have to do repairs. So roughly, like you said, it's $2 million, and we're doing about 20 miles, so it's about 100,000 a mile.
Let me ask another question too. With the onset of the gas tax increase that's going to be coming in, and I know that collection is going to start in July, have we factored in the ability to be able to repair more roads with that money available? I know you're not going to get a whole year for that, but it's pretty substantial. I think
We
we
haven't put that towards this yet.
Okay.
We've got some other emergencies that I'm sure you're aware of. Price Road Bridge, we'll probably use some of that money for that. We've also got O'Banionville Slide that we'll use some of the money for that. And who knows what other emergencies might happen between now and the end of the year.
So when we talked the first time, I think we were on a schedule. Was it 20 years to get through all the 400 miles that we have to pave?
The industry standard is to have a road resurfaced every 10 to 12 years.
And every 10 to 12 years.
Last year, prior to the $5 license plate fee, we were on about a 40-year cycle.
Okay. But if we're only going to get 20 miles of road done this year,
we're in a 20-year cycle.
Right, we're on a 20-year cycle.
Technically, right now, we're on about a 24-year cycle. We're getting a little bit more roads resurfaced this year, only because some of the roads don't need the extensive repairs that they typically do.
Mm-hmm.
But we're roughly on about a 20 to 24-year cycle right now.
But that'll get better with the gasoline.
With the gasoline tax, if we actually took that entire gasoline tax and put it towards resurfacing only, that would put us right about at that 12-year cycle. And that's assuming and that's probably not going to be the case. We're going to have to use some of that tax revenue for bridges, landslides, some other projects. I think Pat's going to be here next week to talk about that.
Okay. Board, I'm not going to move to vote on this today. I'm going to recommend that we table this issue.
Okay.
I would like Pat to come over and talk to us if that's possible. No offense there. I'd just like to hear why we can't get $3 million worth of roads paved this year. We need to fix these roads in Clermont County.
Okay.
I think we've made the commitment to fix these roads, and if we can do it, let's try to do it.
It's going to put us behind on bids and all that if we wait a week.
Yeah, put us behind a week.
Yeah, but it's only a week.
Usually the earlier the year, the better the prices. But
Do I need a motion to table, Judy?
You have a motion and a second on the, for this particular item, and then you ask for it to be tabled. So I would,
Do you want me to make a motion to withdraw?
you withdraw your second. Mr. Humphrey will withdraw his first.
Yes.
Okay?
Okay.
And then I would go for a motion to table.
Okay. The original motion has been withdrawn. I would entertain a motion to table.
I'll make a motion to table.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any further conversation or discussion? Roll call, Judy.
Mrs. Corcoran?
Yes.
Mr. Humphrey?
Aye.
Mr. Painter?
Yes.
So this will get reworked for next week.
Next.
It'll be on next week.
Okay.
Item 8,
And number 8 is a recommendation of Pat Munger, County Engineer, with concurrence with Tom Igel, County Administrator, to execute record plat number 629-3135 for the replat of lots in the following subdivisions located in Stoneman Township. This is for the Greenman 2 subdivision, replat of lot number 50, 67, 68, and 69. It is to create a new lot number 50A.
Board, you've heard the reading of item number 8. Do I have a motion for approval?
So moved.
I'll second the motion.
Been moved and seconded. Any further conversation or discussion? Roll call, Judy.
Mr. Humphrey?
Aye.
Mrs. Corcoran?
Yes.
Mr. Painter?
Yes. Item 9.
Item number 9 is a recommendation of Pat Munger, County Engineer, with concurrence of Tom Igel, County Administrator, to execute record plat number 629-3136 for the right-of-way dedication plat for Port Rush Way in Union Township, and further to execute performance and maintenance bonds as well as the performance bond for sidewalks as surety for same relative to the construction of the below-listed street. This is a right-of-way dedication plat for Port Rush Way in Union Township for a performance and maintenance bond of $21,000 and $10,000, and performance bond for sidewalks of $14,800.
You've heard the reading of item number 9. Do I have a motion for approval?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further conversation or discussion? Roll call, Judy.
Mrs. Corcoran?
Yes.
Mr. Humphrey?
Aye.
Mr. Painter?
Yes. Item number 10.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Morning.
Item 10 is a recommendation to approve a request to advertise for proposals. This is for lockbox processing services by financial institutions for tax bills and utility bills of Clermont County, Ohio. This will be in pursuant to the specifications and to authorize the clerk of the board to place the legal notice in the newspaper on May 2nd. The proposals will be received at 2 p.m. local time on Thursday, June 6th here in our office. And the request for proposal will be published on our county website. We were notified earlier this year that our current lockbox provider and our only lockbox provider we've ever used, U.S. Bank, is going out of the business as of the end of the year.
Board, you've heard the reading of item number 10. Do I have a motion for approval?
So moved.
I'll second the motion.
Been moved and seconded. Any further conversation or discussion? Roll call, Judy.
Mr. Humphrey?
Aye.
Mrs. Corcoran?
Yes.
Mr. Painter?
Yes. Item number 11. Thank you, Suki.
I'm Mary Raines, Office of Management and Budget. Item 11 is a request to increase the annual appropriation. The Park District other expenses for $650,000. The Clermont County Park District's capital fund in the amount of $1,851,360. And for the Narcotics Unit Asset Forfeiture Fund, other expenses in the amount of $50,000. The park districts are related. The one for their operating fund is to allow money to be budgeted to transfer to their capital. Chris Klingman's here if you have any questions specifically about what they've got in the works as far as their capital plan.
Board, you've heard the reading of item number 11. Do I have a motion for approval?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further conversation or discussion? Chris, you want to just give us a quick update on capital improvements?
I'm Chris Klingman, Director of the Clermont County Park District. This transfers and things are in relation to a couple different projects that we have going on. One is we are applying for a Clean Ohio Fund grant to expand Pattison Park. We're looking at a purchase of an additional 134 acres to the park, and the Clean Ohio Fund grant would make up a portion of that purchase to help cover the expenses of that. We're also getting ready to advertise for bids on new restroom facilities at Pattison Park Lakeside and a new picnic shelter that will go in there as well. And we're also replacing one of the picnic shelters with 2 shelters at Sycamore Park, and also updating and replacing the restroom facilities at that park as well. And we're also working on repairs and resurfacing of the tennis courts at Sycamore Park. All these items are the budgeted numbers that were in there is to make those transfers and things possible working out of our capital fund.
Any further conversation or discussion? Questions for Chris? Roll call, Judy.
Mrs. Corcoran.
Yes.
Mr. Humphrey.
Aye.
Mr. Painter.
Yes. Thank you. Do we have any additions to the agenda?
Yeah, I don't want Chris to go too far. Sorry, Chris. Commissioners, we have a letter from the Park District that was dated April 2nd, 2019, and the first edition would be consideration of acknowledgement of that letter, which is required for Chris to submit his application. So this is not a letter of support. This would just be simply an acknowledgement of that letter.
Okay.
So that
And
would
I
be the first
understand
add-on.
the acknowledgement of that letter. Well, first of all, I would ask for a motion that we add this particular item to the agenda. Is that appropriate? We need to do that? Do I have a motion?
So moved.
I'll second the motion.
Been moved and seconded. Roll call.
Mr. Humphrey.
Aye.
Mrs. Corcoran.
Yes.
Mr. Painter.
Yes. The item is on the agenda. Could you just, I understand that it's for Clean Ohio. Is that
Right.
correct? Okay.
For the Clean Ohio Fund grant, we're applying for, which would be about a total of $315,000. We're required to notify the county commissioners that we're applying for the grant. You're not required to support it or anything else, but if you'd like to issue a letter of support of the grant application, that would be appreciated. We will be, like I said, this is to expand Pattison Park by about 134 acres total. Park District will be making part of the purchase with its levy funds, and then part of the purchase will be made with the Clean Ohio funds if we receive the grant.
Okay. You've heard the request. Do I have a motion to support?
Well, this
You
would
want
be-
to
the
first
the first
acknowledge.
add-on will be just acknowledging that letter, because that is something that is required. And then if the board would choose to support the project, that would be a separate motion.
Okay.
Make a motion, we acknowledge the letter, receipt of the letter.
I'll second that motion.
Any further conversation or discussion? Roll call, Judy.
Mr. Humphrey.
Aye.
Mrs. Corcoran.
Yes.
Mr. Painter.
Yes.
And then, Chris, would you mind talking a little bit about the funds that are being used by Clean Ohio exactly on that property? What exactly are we preserving with those funds? Because I believe it's the stream and the water quality in Stone Lake Township.
The 90 acres that were on that property that we're using for Clean Ohio is primarily the forested portion of the property, and it protects about 8,000 feet of headwater streams for Stone Lake Creek. And if you look at the Stone Lake Township Growth Management Plan, in there they encourage the expansion of Pattison Park, and they also want to protect the Stone Lake Creek Valley. And part of the property definitely matches up to their management plan for protection of that stream valley in there. The forested area has vernal ponds and things in it as well, and a quick look at those earlier this spring, we did find like spotted salamander eggs in those vernal ponds, and so good indicator species of a healthy forest habitat and things in there, and it'll be a wonderful addition to the park. The little stream valleys and things will make beautiful hiking spots for people in the future, and that's part of the plan, is to develop hiking trails on that portion of the property.
Thank you. We've acknowledged the letter, so therefore I would ask for a motion to support the.
So there would be, it would be another add-on to the agenda for supporting the actual application.
So I'd ask for a motion to add on to the agenda the opportunity to support this Clean Ohio recommendation and purchase.
So moved.
I'll second the motion.
Been moved and seconded. Roll call, Judy.
Mr. Humphrey.
Aye.
Mrs. Corcoran.
Yes.
Mr. Painter.
Yes. We've now finished with a motion to actually add it on to the agenda. Now I would support a motion for approval of that recommendation.
Commissioner Painter, if I may.
Mhm.
I know that you have been nominated to serve on NRAC, and this application could potentially go through NRAC.
Okay.
So I would recommend you consider abstaining should the board decide to offer a letter of support for this project.
Okay.
I move we offer a letter of support.
I'll second the motion.
It's It's been moved and seconded. Any further conversation or discussion? Roll call, Judy.
Mr. Humphrey.
Aye.
Mrs. Corcoran.
Yes.
Mr. Painter.
I'll abstain. Thank you, Tom. Is there any other item we need to add to the agenda?
No, sir.
Okay. With that, we'll move to item number I. I'm requesting that we have an executive session pursuant to section 121.22 G1 and G3 of the Ohio Revised Code to, one, consider the appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline, promotion, or compensation of one or more public employees, and to confer with the prosecuting attorney regarding pending or imminent litigation, respectively. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
A second.
It's been moved and seconded. Roll call, Judy.
Mr. Humphrey.
Aye.
Mrs. Corcoran.
Yes.
Mr. Painter.
Yes. We now move to executive session. We will return and conduct further business. Thank you. We're back from executive session. There was no business conducted and there were no decisions made. We will move right into item number J in the agenda, county staff elected official discussions. Are there any county staff or elected official discussions? Anything you need to discuss, board?
Nope.
None.
Suki, anything on the administrative
No,
side?
sir.
Judy?
No, sir.
Hearing none, I will close the county staff elected official discussion, and I will move to item number K from member comments. Board members, any comments about the meeting today?
No comments.
I thought it was very productive. I was really glad to see so many people in attendance,
Yes.
especially that represented the townships, the villages, and the cities. I thought the resolution process today, you know, of obviously National Day of Prayer, and
Or foster children.
that's right, foster children, and the designation of Ulysses S. Grant Commemoration Day. I thought all those were worthwhile endeavors, and glad to see the participation, and glad that that many people got to participate in that. So great. Suki,
I do want to bring something back up.
go
I
ahead.
see Tom's note here.
Okay.
It's not it's not necessarily gonna be an action item add-on, unless you want it to be. And it's consideration of an acknowledgement of a Park District letter for an application for Clean Ohio funds.
We did that
We
already.
did that.
Did you do it already?
Handled all
Did I miss that?
And
Sorry, when I
then
had to go
It's
do
all
my.
right.
Did a
Glad you
support
checked.
letter.
Okay, good. I see him on this add-on when I flip to the back. Good,
Okay.
thank you. Ignore me.
Thanks. Thanks for bringing that up. I am gonna ask for a motion to recess this board meeting and convene at 3 o'clock this afternoon for further discussion and business. If I
3:15 is good.
3:15 is fine.
I'd make a motion that we recess and come back at 3:15.
I will second that motion.
Been moved and seconded. Any conversation or discussion? Roll call, Judy.
Mr. Humphrey.
Aye.
Mrs. Corcoran.
Yes.
Mr. Painter.
Yes. We stand in recess until 3:15 this afternoon. We are back in the boardroom, and I'd like to call this meeting from recess back into regular session. I understand that we have a need for an executive session.
Yes, sir. G1.
I would. Asking for an executive session pursuant to section 121.22 G1 of the Ohio Revised Code to consider the appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline, demotion, or compensation of one or more public employees. Do I have a motion to go into executive session?
So moved.
I'll second the motion.
Been moved and seconded. Roll call, please.
Mr. Humphrey.
Aye.
Mrs. Corcoran.
Yes.
Mr. Painter.
Yes. We are moving into executive session. We will return and conduct further business. Thank you. We are back from executive session. There were no decisions and no business conducted. Tom, are there any more issues that need to come before the board today?
No, sir.
Board, I'll ask you one last time. Is there anything else that we need to conduct business on today?
Nope.
Judy?
No, sir.
Okay. All right. I would entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting then today.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Roll call.
Mrs. Corcoran.
Yes.
Mr. Humphrey.
Aye.
Mr. Mr. Painter?
Yes. And thank you for attending our April 24th, 2019 meeting today. We look forward to seeing you next time.